edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are going to the farm. If you don't know what that means, well, you've tuned into the right episode. We're going to talk about agriculture and farming, or ag tech, along with factories, and how all of this fits into our future supply chains, from the farm all the way to our table and everything else in between. So we've got two of the best and brightest around these subjects to talk to us about what's happening on the ground, in the soil, all the way to the foods that we're eating, to the value chains and supply chains that deliver it to us at home for us to eat as well. So tons to talk about. We're going to the farm, and we're going to share more with you on what all that means and entails here as we jump into today's episode. But first, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, click subscribe, and do reach out if you'd like to be an investor and share your thoughts and insights around technologies, industries, and regions around the world, like our other investors and guests today as well. And also entrepreneurs, this is an opportunity for you as well. We do have a virtual stage for you to get up and pitch us in real time as investors. Focus on your area to get feedback, not only on your product or service, but also on your pitch, and also be able to build a great relationship with us as investors and future supporters of you, along with our entire live audience as well. So do reach out to the team and or myself to find the right opportunity and set of investors for you. And a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, as we head to the farm, let's go ahead and start introducing each and every one of our guests. Keith, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background for everybody who might not know you.
Great. Thanks, Kyle. Well, I've been a clean tech VC for 20 years. Started something a little bit different this year, but still with a great passion for the impact that we can have in food and ag tech. That really developed starting in 2006 when I left Mitsubishi Corporation and became president of BASF Venture Capital America, and suddenly found myself on the board of directors of food and ag tech companies. I had no background, just thrown into the deep end, and I had to learn. But the opportunity there to make money, to feed the world, to have huge impact on the environment and also on societal factors, there really is nothing else that can touch it. And so I'm extremely excited about that area. When I joined Pangea Ventures, I brought that passion for this space in there. Pangea is a materials and chemistry focused VC, but those are major factors within food and ag tech. Made a number of investments, some of which I'm going to be happy to talk about on today's show. And then this year, as I said, I've split off and formed something new called Upper Stage Ventures, which is a hybrid PE VC model, acquiring companies that are impacting the supply chain. And food and ag tech is a big part of that.
Wonderful. Welcome back. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about Upper Stage and what you have recently begun to do there, but also some of your background. So excited to share all of that here in just a moment. But last but not least, from the farm, who's going to share all of her knowledge with us today? Irina, welcome back. A little intro, a little background for everyone, please.
I'm from Homestead right now. I'm not at the farm today. So I have my office back, which is really, really nice. Yeah, so, which is kind of like a farm, right? Whatever. People think it's a farm, but it's, I'm home. I'm home today. It's a pleasure to be back. I've missed you, Kyle, and I've missed everybody. I saw Keith, you were on several panels too last week that I missed. So I missed all of you, and I missed you viewers too. So much have happened in a week. It's amazing. Right. So my name is Irina Litchfield. I am founder of Blockchain Cubed. It's a blockchain integration company. Primarily, we work with finance industry, so integration of finance and blockchain solutions that we have experience working with all kinds of other projects as well. But usually it's all underlying financial technology, no matter how you look at it, for the most part. I'm also president of Lumeria. Lumeria is where capital meets innovation. We work with growth stage companies. So my mission is to democratize opportunities and investments all over the world. I'm owner of Moonreach Farm too, so that's why this is very dear. We're working on regenerative farming, and our goal is to kind of be able to create almost a template, if you would, to where we can inspire others to go in and do it at a different scale. So building up systems on that side, and I love the agriculture and the food supply and everything. Today's topic is very close to my heart because I think that we are living through the time when finding solutions for agriculture and farming is one of the most important things for all of us in the world, including us here in America, where we are privileged to have choices for food and water.
Well, and we've also seen already this year some potential issues with those supply chains and value chains as well, and some of the potential shortfalls that can be adjusted for with today's latest technologies. But before we get into that, I want to come to each of you to hear your view of the current state of these areas when it comes to ag tech, and then also just general chains as well. And Keith, starting with you, I mean, you've been in this space for a few years, won't date you, but a few years. What are you seeing that has changed and kind of accelerated us to where we are today and where we're going around agriculture and then around the supply chains within?
Well, there's been a much greater awareness of the opportunity to make money in this space among venture capitalists. When I first got involved in this, it didn't seem obvious to me. And yet, as I dug into it, I saw so many exits that had occurred at very high multiples of sales and also multiples of cash that had gone in. That awareness has spread, and you're starting to see generalists take an interest in the area. Having said that, the last couple of years have been kind of strange ones in farming, where we've seen the trade war with China greatly affect soybean farmers. We've seen flooding create enormous problems. So we've seen corn prices because of ethanol absolutely tank and stay low. Now, these things are cyclical, and there are multiple factors that affect them, but that did produce a really quashing effect on the enthusiasm of investors there, because anything that was addressing corn suddenly became difficult. The value proposition towards the farmer became less, and so the ability to price aggressively and hold margins for any technology company in that space became very negatively pressured. Now, I expect, like all these things, this is cyclical, and we're going to see things rise again, as they always have done, and there's a great opportunity for investment in that space. If I look at this from the other perspective, from the acquirer's perspective, the big consolidation that occurred in agriculture between the major firms slimming down to a big four from a big six, with a great reshuffling of what assets were owned by each one of these groups, it really depressed M&A activity for a couple of years as they just sorted through all of that. Right now, there's a really interesting opportunity for M&A as those groups are becoming settled out of that. They are used to what's happened over the last couple of years in corn and soy, and they do have cash. There is an opportunity to go out and acquire some of these really great technological innovators in the ag and food tech space, and probably they can get them for less than they would have got them for a couple of years ago, because of the changing venture sentiment. So I think there's a great opportunity here for exits to occur in the next couple of years in ag tech.
Well, and it doesn't feel like it's slowing down either, to your point. I mean, this is something, an area that hasn't been paid attention to very often, and now is starting to be, because of so many areas and shortfalls that needed to be filled, and technology is able to fill those roles now more than ever. So you're calling out great points there, Keith. Irina, to you, same thing. What are you seeing as the current state now, looking forward ahead, as you've been involved in this world in the past, but now also living in it day to day? What are you seeing?
Yes, I would like to expand. My answer is the expansion really to what Keith said, because really I think that while there's that drop in the corn, right, it opens up opportunities now for other models of farming, and so and I think that's a good thing because traditional farming of corn is very destructive to topsoil. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. We're at a loss of a topsoil in a rate right now that is very frightening, and it should be more concern to the world than it is discussed. We're concerned about the air, we're concerned about the water, we're concerned about the food quality, increasing biodiversity in topsoil, creating more topsoil allows us to actually solve a lot of those matrix, a lot of those problems. And obviously there's all kinds of discussions about that too, of why we can measure that. But I think that that's really good, because then now regenerative farming, for example, is a way that you can say, oh, okay, we can actually model more profitable way of growing and have diversity through the farm, because to do a biodiversity and to increase topsoil, you actually need to have diversity in the land, right? So you have to plant different crops. All of the sudden, the meat for the cows become not so expensive, and actually they become a very important part of your kind of a system, right, into creating biodiversity. So all of a sudden it's not taking a toll on the planet as well, right? So it allows us to look at the meat in a different way. There's a lot of different ways we can make money now in an alternative farming, because traditional systems are kind of not working so well. I think that's opening up to us the opportunities. So that's what we're saying. I'm seeing a lot of that, and I see a lot of questions right now raised of how do we deploy, let's say, $1 billion in regenerative farming. And VCs are trying to solve these problems, right? Because now that's a problem. So how I deploy that instead of does that even really even work? And so and in Texas here specifically, we've seen huge rise in grass-fed and all the healthy kind of the milks, the unpasteurized milk farms are becoming more popular. People pay premium and people really want to do it. And then what we're seeing that's making an interesting opportunity, I think, is that because the attention of people is rising toward the health and toward the quality of food, now there's more demand. And as demand comes up, that means that farmers can actually start dropping the pricing and compete with the traditional pricing world in a better ways. And interestingly too, we can also now seeing, and I'll end with that, is that we are finally starting to see like, well, how can we actually monetize to things that we're doing the impact? Because you can actually take the impact that you are creating, besides the food and all the profitable models, you can add that to your tables as well. So it creates kind of a better profit, if you would.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, where are the areas of opportunities? Where should we be paying attention to as investors? I mean, laying down this bets, whether it's $1 billion, it's $1, it's $100 billion. Where should we start making bets in these areas of agriculture, regenerative farming, and also that further picture of supply chain? Because there are so many, but where do you start? Where's the areas that are most opportunistic and also most needed? So keep
buying land right now is the biggest kind of a rush. The farms are, I mean, the transition of land that we're starting to experience right now is enormous, and these opportunities are there, right? So it's interesting because it makes sense to buy land just because it does, and then you can start looking at changing the farming and adding the income on top of that, right? And creating new systems. So that's in Texas, that's what we're seeing. In Utah, that's what we're seeing. It's not that the houses are flying off the market. The farms are impossible to buy. There's a wait to be able to see. You have to know realtors to be able to go in and get in 2 pieces of land, right? Especially if they're not white-tail, groomed to hunting. Even those are flying.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
go ahead, Keith.
The land and a rush for water rights. This is an enormous opportunity, but it's a well-recognized opportunity. You know, I wouldn't say that you're going to find a lot of bargains out there right now because there is so much interest. But on more on the VC side of things, and specifically to your question, Kyle, I'll go back to the company I spoke about on Friday, which is Hazel Technologies. And that idea of this is building on what Irina was saying about the ability to establish and hold pricing for farmers, growers, and packers as well. Hazel's technology stretches out the longevity of produce and meats and a wide variety of things. They have a whole pipeline of products. It's quite an amazing technology. But the specific effect there around pricing is, you know, when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, this is so nice for the grocer because their stock lasts longer and it looks attractive on the shelves and all of that. But it turns out they were not the ones that benefited from this. It's the packers and growers. If you have so many crates of avocados and they are aging, and you know that they have to get to the customer before they get so soft that nobody will buy them, you are under tremendous pressure to sell those no matter what the price is if they've been around for a few days. And so that's what happens. There are enormous dumps of volume of any given produce onto the market. And when the volume is high, the price will fall dramatically because all the growers, the packers, they are trying to sell, just move the product, because if it rots, they lose it. They lose all the money, all the labor that went into making that a real product. The beauty of Hazel is that by extending the shelf life, the freshness life, not just a pre-freshness, a pre-edible level, but really extending that ideal freshness window, it gives the farmer, it gives the packer this ability to watch the market and say, you know, there's very low volume of cherries selling today, whatever it is that they're selling, this is the day to sell our product. And then now they have a multi-day window to do that. This will result in much more stable pricing, as well as more stable quality, high quality of produce that the consumer is going to benefit from. Everyone along the supply chain will benefit from this by having product that is less perishable. It will still eventually go bad. I mean, these are still just organic molecules. This is, you know, mostly you're still dealing with natural systems here. But by extending that window, really everybody benefits. Everyone will make more money and the consumer will have better, tastier food.
And where do alternative foods sit into this category as well? I mean, is this something that you're seeing a major growth and opportunity in as well?
Yeah, I am. Alternative protein in particular. You are seeing an increased interest in more conventional alternative proteins like aquaculture, moving away from the resource-intensive beef in particular, but also other mammalian protein sources. Whereas with certain types of fish, for every kilogram of protein that goes in, you get a kilogram of protein out. It's extremely efficient. There are problems in that industry around disease. If you are feeding, generally you are feeding these other fish that have been chopped up, and any viruses and bacteria that were in those fish are moving on into your population too, and you can lose a high percentage or indeed an entire harvest because of that. We invested in a company called Callista that is making protein from natural gas. These are naturally occurring organisms that like to eat methane, and the byproduct that they produce, their waste product, is beautiful protein that the fish like to eat, that our bodies like to eat too. And natural gas is, for a long time, I think, going to be the cheapest source of carbon, because it's coming from natural gas, very pure methane source. In this case, there are no viruses, there's no bacteria. You're just making pure protein that goes right into these fish or into animal feed, or hopefully soon into human protein products as well. I'm very excited about that space.
Irina, it looked like you had a point earlier as well. You want to throw something on?
Oh, I'm just shaking my head because everything Keith is saying is basically spot on. I mean, it's unbelievable. Though it's interesting, Keith, I think that when you said, and hopefully human, I could just see some people jumping up in this unacceptance. And I just would like to address the people that might think those things. It really is just a protein. So it doesn't, and then it really doesn't matter where it comes from. And if it's a good for environment and we are able to kind of a recycle, it's actually the best thing we can do. It's way better than using it for something else. So in the end of the day, chemistry is chemistry, and protein, digestible protein is a digestible protein. You could tell the difference where it came from.
You bet. I mean, that whole fear of frankenfoods, of anything that's more scientifically derived, as opposed to what we've done over millennia of agriculture, that's a very emotional thing for people. They feel it in a great way. GMOs. I always make the point with people, are you really more comfortable with something that people just kind of randomly mashed together with no understanding, that sometimes results in indigestible or even poisonous foods, as opposed to studying the activity of a particular gene and then modifying just that one at a time to get something that is a higher quality and cheaper to grow and grows more per acre? Really. I'll just give one really funny example around that. In Europe, they're particularly sensitive about GMO, and BASF Plant Sciences developed a potato not for human consumption. But in the potato, there are two different kinds of starches. One, which is an edible starch, and the other one of which is essentially the same starch that we make paper out of. This potato only expressed the latter of the two. So this was a potato to harvest to make paper from. So we don't have to harvest trees. We just plant a crop of potatoes, you harvest them the same year, or maybe it's the next year, and there you go. You're making paper from that very sustainably, and grows in pretty poor soil conditions too. So you can plant in a wide variety of places. Not for human consumption, I repeat. But the protests around this plot of land that they got to run the tests on were so disruptive and so upsetting, and caused so much negative press from people that had no interest in understanding the science or the ecological advantages of this at all, that they ended up having to shut down the program. And yet it would have done a lot of good. We would have saved a lot of trees, and with them, all the CO2 that those trees suck out of the atmosphere.
Wow, wow, wow. And it's interesting and ironic that you mentioned that around the sustainability footprint as well, because I just got an email literally as you were saying that comment from Chipotle, who we know is making big efforts here in 2020 in a lot of different ways around their production. And they were talking about reducing their food print, not footprint, food print, and actually focusing on a greater focus around sustainability and how they do things around farming and sustainability as well. Are you both seeing similar things in respect of how we're focusing more on climate or sustainability around food production?
Yes, absolutely. I think that we're finally understanding that there's a huge link between those two. And so changing the way we address food really changes the quality of our air and water and everything else. Interesting. So my daughter's best friend had a birthday party, and we had at our homestead we have pot belly pig. And we love our potbelly pig because he eats all of the leftovers, also spoil things. And so we don't waste anything. And then he's a great pet. He goes and, digs through, he digs through our milking cow poop, excuse my language, and the chickens come and work through it. And so we have no problems with fatties anywhere, right? So we have like this dynamic at homestead right now. We have just kind of animals taking care of their stuff. They live in their little farm. But what's interesting is that there was a birthday party at a Mexican restaurant, and there was so much waste of food that restaurant brought so much food, which they usually end up doing, to where we had a huge trash bag full of leftovers, because there was about maybe 15 people, okay, that were at the gathering. And I just asked since we're all friends, so, don't put anything away. We're going to clear all the plates and take them home, because I'm coming home with the treats, right? Like full trash can. And to me, it was amazing to really see how a small party of us would have created such a waste, right? And it's not we, it's the whole kind of a supply chain, but we did not all eat even half of what was thrown away. And to me, seeing that was really unbelievable. And so I think that a lot of restaurants and a lot of kind of people that supply food are starting to now think, okay, we need to remodel the way we serve too, because the capacity is getting smaller, the waste is obvious. So how do we actually market it to where we produce less food on the plate, and we are not wasting the money? So we finally have that attachment into the waste is wasteful money, right? Like wasting food is wasting money. And I believe that restaurant owners all over the world are realizing that, because we're seeing huge shrink of portions, smaller and more targeted food portions, which I think we can save the world just limiting how much we serve and throw away.
But and I agree, and there's some interesting stuff going on there. I looked at a company that's doing a small anaerobic digester, like the size of a dishwasher or a commercial dishwasher, that can be installed into a restaurant that takes that food waste and at least gets some sort of heat, usable heat energy out of it. But the waste, that's actually a very small portion of the waste that we see. Almost all of the wasted food happens earlier in the supply chain. Happens in storage, happens on the fields. It's 1/3 of all food that's produced is wasted. The impact of pests in the field and then in storage is enormous. And I'm talking here about insects, but I'm also talking about fungal pathogens. It's enormous, and you of course, if something is eaten, you can't sell it, but if something becomes infected with fungus, you cannot sell it either. So one of my investments is a company called Vestron Corporation. They're in Research Triangle Park, as well as in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they developed a pesticide that is based upon compounds discovered in nature from the venom of different animals. But they found molecules that interfere very effectively with the nervous system of an insect, of a particular type of insect, but have no effect on any non-target organisms, humans, fish, bees, all unaffected by this. And yet for the beetles or caterpillars that destroy vast amount of crops, this stuff kills them very quickly, kills them very effectively. And they're now commercial with that. I'm extremely excited about the possibility there, not only to save the food, but to replace the very toxic and dangerous in ways that we did not foresee chemicals, such as the impact on bees and other pollinators. Also invested into a company called New Leaf Symbiotics. New Leaf is using natural plant-associated bacteria. New Leaf understands how those bacteria are interacting with the plant and with other bacteria that live in the soil and on the plant. And by optimizing that mix of organisms on the plant, by inoculating a seed with the right strains, etc., you give that plant a lot of resistance to the type of fungal pathogens that could infect it, both in the field and in storage afterwards. Enormous impact. In fact, of when we did that impact study that I told you about a couple of weeks ago on a program, that company's impact in terms of CO2, food production, and water savings dwarfed all of the other investments that we looked at. It's absolutely enormous.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And with that being said, it is Partner Monday, so I want to make sure we all get our closing thoughts in here. And as we come to wrap, and Keith and Irina, thank you so much for sharing all these great things. This is amazing. So Irina, I want to come to you. Closing thoughts. Where are you seeing the opportunities in the future of these industries going into 2021 and beyond, as well, that people should be paying attention to? And of course, where can they find you to continue the conversation?
I think alternative methods of growing are very important, and we're going to see them. I think those are opportunities there now, and they will keep increasing. I also think that food supply chain is going to, there's a lot of opportunities there. Integration of blockchain really is, a lot of blockchain solutions solve a lot of these problems, not on its own, but by its application, we can make quite large changes to the systems. And so to me, that's kind of a really open green field. So those are the opportunities I'm seeing. And find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and message me. I'm available. Just make sure you make a reference to at least, what can I do for you?
Wonderful. And Keith, to you, same question. Okay, yeah, that's great. So I mentioned my new company called Upper Stage Ventures. We are acquiring commercial stage companies. We do have an interest in the food space. We are working on a couple of acquisitions in that area right now, but we're not limited to that. Our theme is supply chain. So we're looking at things from the beginning of the supply chain through to the end, and we're looking at software companies that are impacting that, as well as manufacturing and more low tech or no tech, but smart business solutions. That's new, and you won't find very much on our website, upperstage.ventures, but it's there and it's developing. You can find me on LinkedIn and also Twitter at Keith A. Gillard. Like Irina said, love to hear from people, but it's great if you just tell me what it is. Just go ahead and send me a PDF, whatever. Don't just send me an email saying, is it all right if I talk to you about something? And I'm like, oh gosh, what is this? No, just go ahead, make your pitch. It's great.
Absolutely. And thank you both so much for sharing your thoughts and insights. And definitely, audience, do reach out to both Keith and Irina. They're absolutely phenomenal individuals and also great investors, and have a ton more to share. So definitely reach out, and again, add that context when you do. And to you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, click subscribe. Do give us a thumbs up. Reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, talk about today's topic or others as an investor. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Irina, as well. We'd love to have you on our show today. And also, entrepreneurs, there is a virtual stage here at VCTV for you to get up on and pitch us as investors focused on your area, your product, your service, and your company, along with to our live audience. So do reach out to the LA Token team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right opportunity for you. And that being said, a big thank you to the LA Token team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day, even here on Partner Monday. As we know, it is traditionally throughout the industry. And with that being said, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Thank you again, Keith, Irina. You can find me and Keith and Irina all online 24/7, 365 on our respective social networks. You can find me at Kyle Ellicott, and we'll be back here tomorrow.